the simpler, the better for me. Your schedule is always changing from week to week. So this bar chart, this Gantt chart is more of a basis, and it keeps you on track, and it lets you know if you're in the big picture, you're behind or ahead of schedule when you have those critical path items. It's not a live and die by type document as much as just another tool that helps me communicate with everyone as far as where we stand. What's going on, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Well, it is not Tuesday for you, but it's Tuesday for me. I got new headphones. Doug sent me some new headphones. They appear to be working. Yeah, they're working. I was having issues with my right side earlier. Phillies had a big Game 1 win against the Diamondbacks last night. Came out of the gate hitting home runs and then buckled down when need be. Rachel and I celebrated our 12th wedding anniversary this past weekend on Sunday. It's crazy to think that we've been married 12 years. She was 26 when we got married. I was 25. It's I can't believe it's been 12 years. I don't know how that has happened. It seems like yesterday. It doesn't feel like we've been married that long. But we had a pretty low key day, grabbed some dinner. Her parents helped out and watched the kids. But yeah, that's about it. It's amazing weather out right now in New Jersey. I love this time of year, except we're getting rain on the weekends, right? So you have this beautiful weather all week long. I'll take it. Then I'd like the weekends to be nice weather as well. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of rain on the weekends. So I'm hoping at least Halloween weekend stays clear. We have a big Halloween parade. The girls softball team walks in. We have a race for my Enduro club. So if there's any local dirt bike riders, Sahara Sands, the Sylvie plant of Eaglewood, we have a race, kids race Saturday, kids race or adults race Sunday of Halloween weekend. You can check it out on the ECEA website, but come out and support Race Your Dirt Bike. All right, so I actually have quite a bit going on today. So this should be relatively short and sweet. But after the last two podcast blog posts, which again, don't forget, go on our website, moderncraftsman.co, and you can see the written version of this podcast. It's not copy of this podcast. It's an actual separate post. So it's not word for word. I write that first and then I base this conversation on that. So definitely go on that website, check that out, spread the word. As always, it helps a lot. Before we jump into talking about what this podcast is, I do want to give a shout out and a thank you to Andersen Windows and Doors. If you have a project in New Jersey, New York, Kuiken Brothers is the premier partner of Andersen Windows and Doors. Showrooms service millwork expertise like no other. Experience the Kuiken Brothers difference. So yeah, if you need windows or doors, Andersen Windows or Doors, Kuiken is a huge name and supplier of Andersen Windows and Doors. So if you're in the tri-state area, check out one of their 9 locations. I know that they do ship out of state and they will work with people out of state. So if you're across the border in Pennsylvania or New York, do not be hesitant to reach out to them. They might be able to help you out with some Andersen Windows and Doors. And also, what goes around windows and doors but moldings? Beautiful moldings, primed finger jointed poplar moldings, not pine moldings. So Kuiken Brothers Classical Moulding, I'm a huge advocate for this molding. I've used it for almost 10 years now on any job where we are integrating a new trim package. That's my go-to molding. They will ship this nationwide. So if you have orders and you want to check out, there may be an opportunity for them to ship this stuff to you, even out in California. I know that they've shipped it all over. They have 90 plus historically inspired poplar molding profiles. They will ship direct to your job site. So check them out at kuikenbrothers.com/classical. That's Kuiken kuikenbrothers.com/classical. If you want to check out Andersen Windows or Doors, that is ANDERSEN windows.com. AndersenWindows.com. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate the support. I appreciate everyone sitting tight during these partnerships. It would be tough for me to devote as much time as I do to this if it weren't for those companies. So make sure that you endorse them, check out their pages, get a hold of them, order windows and doors from them, buy building materials from them, hop on their websites, check out to see their offerings. Okay, let's get to it. After last 2 weeks, I looked at how I'm approaching jobs from a contractual and estimate. The way that I'm working now, as far as somebody hires me for a project, what my pricing model is, my structure. We spoke about that a couple weeks ago. If you haven't listened to it, I think it's blog 37. 38 was how to manage the schedule, which went hand in hand with that. Blog 39 is more about my Gantt chart. I had a handful of people reach out about the Gantt chart. I know. Let me see my email here. So I wasn't going to do this, but then again, I had a handful of people reach out, and then um, an individual, Jason, I believe you say his last name Fermier, but that could be wrong. Jason, I know that we spoke on the phone. He scheduled me for a consulting call, and I didn't ask him how to pronounce his name, but it's Fermier. He specifically was asking questions about my Gantt chart, and I was like, shoot me an email. I'll send you an example of it. And then I was like, I'll also elaborate on this blog post. So that's what this blog post is about. The Gantt chart that goes along with the schedule. So I am sure, I want to preface this. I'm sure that a lot of um, builder construction software programs offer scheduling platform tools. I do not use one because that's one of the luxuries I have. Being so small scale, I don't need software to manage my projects. It helps me remain lean. It helps me keep a lower overhead, and the cost, the investment of it just doesn't make sense for the scale that I am. That's not to say that it wouldn't help, but part of the way that I make money is by remaining lean. And that's not to come at a low price point, but that's to maximize my profit. So I try and remain as lean as possible. I don't use a software for scheduling. I don't have a template or anything. I made it on Excel. It's very simple, essentially a bar chart. Super easy to use. So you can use Excel, you can use numbers. The simpler, the better for me. And one thing to remember is that your schedule is always changing from week to week. So this bar chart, this Gantt chart, is more of a basis, and it keeps you on track, and it lets you know if you're in the big picture, you're behind or ahead of schedule when you have those critical path items or those critical junctures within the project, whether it's rough inspections, subs, countertops, floors. You can keep track of where you are. And this is the same thing as do when I'm billing. I'm looking at this every 2 weeks. I may look at it day to day, but I'm really looking at it from a broader perspective of a 2 week interval, where I'm making sure that within that 2 weeks, I'm getting what I need to done. I'm moving things around. I'm not spending a ton of time week to week adjusting the Gantt chart as much as using that as the basis for how I move forward, engaging where I am, if I'm ahead or if I'm behind, what I need to do for the 2 weeks, the two sequential weeks after the block that I'm in. So it's not a live and die by type document, as much as just another tool that helps me communicate with everyone as far as where we stand, what I'm thinking, if something does get bumped, how that impacts other trades that were to come after. It just helps me sort through all of this visually on paper. So the first thing on the top of my chart, I have a row, and that row, whatever this project is, however long I think it's going to take, I have all the days listed, and I have weekends blocked out in red because I don't want anyone to work weekends. I don't want to be on the job on weekends. I've had issues where people work on weekends and I can't be there, and then it there's an issue that I don't catch because I'm not there, and it delays the overall closing of the project. So I don't work weekends, so I block those dates out, and then I list every single day that I think that this project's going to take, week by week by week. And then my first column is going to be the task. So that's every task. And that's not, I don't break that down. I'm not getting into the weeds here. It's larger tasks. It's rough framing, it is demolition, site protection, carpentry, tile, carpet, insulation. I'm not breaking this down, even paint and prep. I'm not breaking this down to filling nail holes, caulking. It's just bigger because I'm using this as a tool and generalization for the project. So I don't get into the weeds with these tasks. And then the column to the right of that is budgeted days. And I pull this directly from my spreadsheet, the itemization of costs and component of time and labor. So I'm looking at how many days for each task. So when I list these tasks out, generally speaking, I try and list them in a way that they would actually happen during the project. So I'm going to start with site protection, and then demolition, and then layout, and then rough framing, and then subcontractors, insulation, drywall. If there's trades that I know, exterior trades, the job I'm on now, that I could get the stucco demolished, and then we were supposed to get the stucco done earlier. So that's something that could happen during interior renovations. I add those tasks in. So I'm going through my spreadsheet. I'm looking at all of my tasks that have to be completed. I'm looking at my scope of work that I developed, which is a written form of what that project timeline looks like and how I'm going to approach this job. And then I go and I list all of these tasks and all of the time that's associated with them. Again, this is all guessing. I lean on my subs for, hey, how long do you need for the floors? How long is that going to take to cure? And then I have all of those days in there. So then once I have all of those values populated within this Gantt chart, I then color code each task and pick 4 colors, 5 colors. It doesn't matter, but they're all bright, different colors where it's easily distinguishable as you look across this chart from left to right horizontally, as you look through your rows and your columns, that you can easily see, okay, drywall is a purple bar, so I'll go over and pick the purple bar to look at. So it just makes it easier to decipher, and the communication's a little easier than everything being one color. So I color code every task, again, rotating every 4 or 5 colors. Those same colors will come back up. And then I start adding to my schedule. So if site protection is 2 days and I'm starting on Monday, September 1st, I'm going to put 2 days there. And then if I know that my sub can't start until, ideally in a perfect world, I want them to start demoing the day after I finish site protection. But if I want a little bit of wiggle room, maybe I put a day in between them starting and when I wrap up site protection. There's a ton of stuff that I can do during that time, but I try and populate this Gantt chart with inefficiencies, weather, overlaps with sub, and also a lack of overlap where I'm giving some time buffer in there. So as I go through, right, I site protection, demolition, cleanup. Maybe we run into something right up front where I can add time into that at my 2-week interval. Maybe everything goes as planned. I can start rough framing, my layout, and everything. Every day I add to this Gantt chart. And as I'm working down my rows, I'm populating this Gantt chart with my color coded bars with each day, right? If the task is to take 6 days and I started on a Thursday, I'm going to have 2 days that week. And then the 4 days the following week. Somebody didn't put their phone or watch on silent. I remember my first, I think that's the button. I remember my first podcast that I recorded. So I'm populating these, this Gantt chart with everything, right? So if I have a 6-day task and 2 days are getting done in the first week, and then 4 days the next week. Maybe I add a buffer that Friday in case we run late, and I don't really overlap anything there for rough framing. And then I'm going to start up on that Monday again, skip those 2 weekend days. And what's the next thing at that point? It's going to be getting my HVAC sub in, or my plumber. Maybe I can get HVAC, plumber, and electrician all in at once because it's a big enough project. And I just populate it that way. So I go down and I look at every single task, and I look at, before I start populating the Gantts, I look at what days, and I wrap my head around everything. Everything's right there in front of me. So I make sure if there's something in my list of tasks that should come before another one, I can see everything right there and say, well, you know what? Now that I'm working through this in my head, I can actually slide the electrician in before the plumber to start the sub panel, because I know that that's not going to be any issues with rewiring where he's going to be running wires where my plumber needs to. So I look at it from that point of view, and I'm not necessarily creating a best case scenario, just a most accurate case scenario. I don't want to build this schedule day to day with no downtime, with no fluff, that everything's going to be, if it's 3 days, it's 3 days. We're going to stand by that. It won't be more than 3 days because things change. You run into stuff. Even on the job I'm on now, stucco should have been done at the beginning of the job. We needed to order windows, so I couldn't finish the outside until the windows came in. So stucco that was supposed to get done at the beginning of the job is still not done, and I'm ready to start painting on this job, because we had to wait for that to get done. We ended up doing the roof. So all these things got bumped around and shifted and changed. Um, and I, every 2 weeks, will look at this and say, okay, that now is getting bumped to over here. And then it got so screwed up on this job that I didn't say, I'm not going to say I threw the schedule out the window. I knew where I wanted to be, but I was like, at this point, we're going to put our head down. We're going to work. We're going to get through rough inspections and then readdress our schedule and develop a schedule from post drywall on, because we are running into so many different things. So I had an idea, hey, we're 4 weeks behind. We just ran into this. Add another week. We're 5 weeks behind, 6, 7, roughly 8 weeks behind at this point, and we can close this job out when I believe we're going to close it out. So that's how I develop my Gantt chart. Again, I'm not spending hours per week altering this and editing this. It's big picture, right? If I ran into 5 weeks of changes, I don't need to redo this whole Gantt chart. I can adjust my dates on there, because a lot of the same tasks have to get done. We probably did add stuff, but at the 2 weeks up front that we added it, there's no need to put that back into the schedule at this point. So maybe I'll just alter the dates after that 2 weeks, bump everything. Any trades that I need to bump that are going to be at a later date and try and fill something in, I may flip flop them, but I can really still just use this as a loose tool to communicate to subs, to vendors, to customers, inspections, whatever that may be. I build fluff into this. I build inefficiency into this. I and I I try and maintain the schedule, but I really use this for myself and for my subs and for the team to understand where we are, how far behind we are, how far ahead, where we have some time to make up, where we don't. Even sometimes I know towards the end of a job, it's like I can overlap painting with stuff that's getting done in the kitchen, but I'm gonna leave that in there right now as a separate non-overlapping item, because what if we run into other stuff that I can't overlap those tasks, or what if we get behind schedule? I'd rather have that buffer built in. If I can overlap them and finish early, great, but I'm sure that there's going to be stuff that we run into or come up, and I'd rather build that into the schedule and then not have to add time for things that we come across. And I think that you're giving yourself a little bit of breathing room there. So that's the goal with this. And I can look at, I can look at the date today and say, hey, it is October 17th, and I can go onto my Gantt chart and I can say, okay, October 17th, really, I'm somewhat where I need to be. The next critical date is starting tile, and on my budgeted spreadsheet I have October 22nd. and I intend to start tile this week. So I know that I'm right in line with where I need to be as far as schedule goes. I'm not going to alter those dates. I'm not going to change that schedule because day to day it may change. I just understand big picture where I need to be. I even put dates in there where it's like if I have a line item for countertops, I will have a mini bar where it's like, hey, at this point in the job, schedule the template, schedule your electricians, plumbers, get the appliances there, all these things that during the course of the job, when your boots on the ground and you have your tool belt on, it's difficult to manage all these things. It just helps with that. It also, there's some accountability with it. So again, use this tool loosely. Edit it accordingly. Don't panic if the days don't match up day to day, week to week. Look at the milestones, the deadlines. Look at the critical path, the critical dates, and help that define your schedule. It's the same thing I said last week. If you can create a Gantt chart that you stick to, you're either God or you just lucked out, and I'd love to see you do it twice. It's not there as something that you have to hold everyone to and lose sleep at night and be anxious about if you can't maintain. It's there as a basis for what you believe to be doing. And day to day, week to week, you have to look at the big picture. What's our next time constraint really? If the floors are planned to get done and you know that your floor sub have a 6-month wait and he doesn't have time window to bump, you need to make sure that whatever you need to push or bump until later in the project, that you have a critical path for getting that done to get your floor sub in when he needs to keep the job on schedule. And it affords you an opportunity to audible and to adapt to maintain that critical path. And again, that's just good management. Managing a job isn't about fulfilling and executing this Gantt chart day to day the way that you intend it, as much as the big picture. If the goal is to finish mid-November and this thing gets turned on its head and upside down and you still execute the way that you need to and you finish mid-November, but none of your dates were accurate throughout it, you still probably backed into this schedule due to your Gantt chart and the critical path and the critical items and tasks that you needed to maintain that schedule. So that's what I use this for. Um, Again, I'm not going to live and die by this. A lot of times there's changes to it, but I just use it. Um, Future jobs, the job I'm on, scheduling subs, again, getting materials delivered, appliances delivered, scheduling work, whoever's helping you. It all is, this is just another tool in this entire management and invoicing and business structure that I use together. I don't use one, I use all of them and I blend all of them together. I don't live or die by any of them independently of each other, but the sum of all of these is really what I try and live and die by, big picture, and then I use this as just a tool to lean on. Um, I hope that this helps you guys figure out what I do with this Gantt chart, how I develop this. It's fairly simple. It's fairly easy. It's easy to adjust. You don't need to invest in some sort of platform. You don't need to download a template. I can take the template that I have and populate that the same as my spreadsheet, right? I have all of these tasks on here and I pick and choose what I populate as far as my Gantt chart goes. If there's items in this Gantt chart that I don't use, you can delete those rows and just save a master template, or you can just not populate them and still just build your schedule out from there. So I hope that this helps you guys understand what I'm using this for, how I develop it, and the simplicity of it. And really, the big thing for me is to be flexible with this schedule. You're going to waste so much energy trying to manipulate everything to make it work day to day, where you should be spending that energy and focus on trying to uh, manipulate and mold your schedule to maintain critical path. Those individual tasks may not be as important as your critical items throughout the schedule and throughout this job. So once you define them through this Gantt chart, you should be able to manipulate all these other tasks to follow that critical schedule. And it does help me a lot. So if you guys have more questions, you have more specific questions, you can always book my time, an hour of my time at a time. I'm usually doing 1 to 2 weeks in advance. I don't like to book more than that, but shoot me an email, tyler@trghomeconcepts.com. It's tyler@trghomeconcepts.com. Most of these calls I schedule for Tuesday morning. So depending on where you are in the country, we can make something work. But if you shoot me an email, we can discuss rates, what my availability looks like, what you want to talk about, make sure it makes sense, and then I can provide that value for there and get something on the books to hop on a phone call. Again, thank you to all the listeners. Thank you to all of the partners, Andersen Windows, Kuiken Brothers. What else? Oh, I believe that shirts are going to be shipping out the 20th. So shortly, if that changes, I will let you know. But thanks for everything. I have 2 more podcasts to record today. So I'll catch you guys next week. Go Phils!